Hello and welcome to the Middle East Report. In this programme today we'll be looking at the internet and how the internet has had a radical impact on news reporting in the Middle East and how social networking sites have mobilised an entire generation across the Arab world known as the Arab Spring, with devastating consequences for those regimes as we've witnessed in 2011. We'll also be discussing a new concept called digital diplomacy and how governments can enter into a new social contract with the people through the use of social media and the internet. And we'll be asking how effective is this new form of diplomacy in creating governmental initiatives. We'll also be discussing the issue of Iran and are we heading closer to war in the Middle East. And today I'm joined by a special guest, Neil Lazarus, who is currently an expert in the Middle East, current affairs, public diplomacy and effective communications training. Neil, welcome back to the Middle East Report.
Thank you.
It's good to have you back on the programme.
It's always a pleasure to be back here.
That's good. And Neil, can some of our viewers who maybe didn't watch the programme that you were on, I think, last year, can you explain a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the very important and vital work that you do for Israel?
Okay, so I am the director of a website called awesomeseminars.com. I work as a keynote speaker, trying to explain, trying to make sense of the situation in the Middle East. At the same time, I also do diplomatic training, both diplomats who represent the State of Israel, and also at the same time, what we're talking about today, ambassadors on the internet, such as your viewers yourself. What we're seeing now is very, very exciting. We're losing journalists, we're losing ambassadors, and people at home who've got an iPhone or a BlackBerry are able to project an image that they want to produce to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of people from their own YouTube sites, from their Facebook accounts, and from Twitter as well. So that's where we're going today. The real story today is digital diplomacy, becoming ambassadors for Israel and the Holy Land, and really getting a message across. So it's really quite exciting to be back. And only in a year or so, things have so rapidly changed.
Oh, very much so. I mean, events are accelerating, as we're seeing in the Middle East with news. It's very difficult to keep a pace of what's going on. Neil, do you want to describe to us what digital diplomacy is? Because having looked on the British and Foreign Office website, there's information on digital diplomacy and their concept of what this is, plus also the State Department in the US is using this new form of diplomacy.
Absolutely. Today, viewers can become ambassadors for Israel, digital ambassadors for Israel, digital diplomats. Effectively, it's using the new social networks, it's not so new, of Facebook, of Twitter, in order to get a message across which is countering the anti-Semitism, the growing anti-Semitism that we're seeing worldwide. It's very simple. If someone has a Twitter account, if someone has a Facebook account, if someone just puts up a 2-minute thought about on YouTube, video themselves with their camera, they can have a huge effect. I'll give you one story. Sure. I took a video from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I think with permission. Anyway, in Hebrew we read from right to left, so copyright is the right to copy. Anyway, I took this website, this video, put it up on YouTube. Now, I don't know if you've ever got an email once, I'm sure most of your viewers have, where it says, if you don't forward this email to 5 people, a fairy will die or something. So I added that to the video, which says, take this video. It was about what's happening in Sderot. Remember, Sderot is that town right near Gaza, which is being bombed every day from Hamas terrorists from the Gaza Strip. Took a story, 2 minutes long, which I'd got from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs side of Israel, put it on, just added, please forward this. If you go into my YouTube account now, which is Awesome Seminars on YouTube, I think the last was around 150,000 people watched this one video. That's crazy. I'm not that important. Every one of your viewers, if we had all of the viewers who are watching Relevation TV, getting active, using their iPhones, taking videos, putting them up, talking about Israel in a positive way, we can change the very image and nature of the State of Israel abroad. I'll give you one example. As you know, many of your colleagues will be following, mainstream journalists will be following people's Twitter accounts today, the Middle East is being changed by a little blue bird, Twitter. Again, people sometimes are a bit anxious about getting into Facebook and Twitter, and that's not me. I would say, you know, if you're worried about it, ask anyone under the age of 7. They'll explain it to you how to do it.
Interesting. So how was the Israeli government effectively using this new form of interaction, which is social media networking sites, to advance their diplomatic initiatives and goals through this new social contract between the people and the government?
Look, I can only analyse. I can't speak officially in the name of the State of Israel, but what we are seeing is that information is being given out on YouTube and being spread in that manner. In other words, what this new revolution does is it circumvents traditional television. Israel's had many problems in the past getting a message across, a fair message across, about why it's acting in a certain manner. And what this enables us to do is to circumvent traditional bias media and get the real image across. So Israel, in many ways, is concentrating on digital diplomacy, is building up its accounts on YouTube, is sending information out on Twitter, and really having an impact there. By the way, I mean, I should add, there's a counterwar. We see that people who are either anti-Semitic or very critical of Israel are also putting up their information, whether it's making allegations which are not true, talking about denial of Holocaust and many other aspects. So there's really a war going on over the social networks in the Middle East. It's a fascinating thing to be watching.
We've got a clip to go to now that's entitled "How Social Network Sites Work."
Networks get things done. Whether it's sending a letter or lighting your home, networks make it happen. To get from Chicago to Santa Fe, we need to see the network of roads that will get us there. We see that Chicago is connected to St. Louis, which is connected to Dallas, which is connected to Santa Fe. Of course, people networks can help us with finding jobs, meeting new friends, and finding partners. You know how it works. Bob is your friend, and he knows Sally, and Sally's friend Joe has a job for you. This is a network of people, a social network. Yay! The problem with social networks in the real world is that most of the connections between people are hidden. Your network may have huge potential, but it's only as valuable as the people and the connections that you can see. Boo! This problem is being solved by a type of website called a social networking site. These websites help you see connections that are hidden in the real world. Here's how it works. You sign up for a free account and fill out your profile. Then you look for people you know. When you find someone, you click a button that says Add as Friend. Once you do this, you and that person have a connection on the website that others can see. They are a member of your network, and you are a member of theirs. What's really cool is that you can see who your friends know and who your friends' friends know. You're no longer a stranger, so you can contact them more easily. This solves a real-world problem because your network has hidden opportunities. Social networking sites make these connections between people visible. Like a map for a highway, they show you the people network that can help you get to your next destination, whether it's a job, a new partner, or a great place to live. Your network is suddenly more useful. You can get started at these sites: LinkedIn, Facebook, and MySpace. I'm Lee Lefevre, and this has been Social Networking in Plain English on The Common Craft Show.
Hello and welcome back to the Middle East Report. Neil, I just want, in my notes here, there's a very good quote by the US Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, has described social media as an important element in the 21st century statecraft. But like you alluded to earlier, isn't there a great danger that groups like Hezbollah, the Muslim Brotherhood, those strong enemies of Israel, also using social network and media sites to spread hatred, lies, anti-Semitism about Israel? And shouldn't there be more regulation in terms of what people can say?
Well, you're absolutely right. The downside of all of this is that other people are doing it as well. Look, you can't win a game of chess by playing by the rules of backgammon. And what we're effectively encouraging people today to do is to get involved. Look, I mentioned before, we've set up for viewers of Revelation TV a free webinar, a seminar on the web where they can really empower themselves to do it via the Awesome Seminars site. So for people who go into that Awesome Seminars site, look up the webinar, and you can actually empower yourselves to do that. It's important because, yes, Hezbollah has a whole unit today. Hamas has a whole unit today, which is training their followers in this battle of social media. It's not a matter of should it be regulated or not regulated. I don't think anyone's looking at regulating the internet. That's always a dangerous element. What we are encouraging people is to get online, talk about Israel, encourage people to speak about Israel. It could be a family photo from when you were in Jerusalem. Anything you like, but talk about Israel and talk about Israel online.
And how effective is this form of communication? Because we know that particularly those under the age of 12 are incredibly technically savvy, and certainly reaching a younger generation is very powerful.
I was in the States recently, and I was waiting for an airline, which I won't mention what airline it was, because we won't, but it was delayed. So I opened up my laptop, and I started tweeting on Twitter, and I wrote, I am really upset with X airline. They're late. Within 2.5 minutes, I got an answer back from the airline saying, we apologize that your aeroplane is delayed. Please accept our apologies. You can be compensated. Just gives you one idea of how much big companies, news, television programs, etc., are all monitoring what's happening on Twitter, what's happening on Facebook, what's happening on YouTube, etc., and taking their stories from it. Let's take Syria, for example. You know, it is unbelievable that we nearly got 6,000 people murdered by the Assad regime. There are some very brave journalists, and I know a journalist only today just got killed in Syria. But the majority of the news that we're getting about Syria is coming from people's iPhones being put on YouTube. So in many, many ways, the whole nature of news broadcasting is changing. What's exciting is viewers can be a part of it. Today, a journalist is someone with a mobile phone. You can become a maker of and influencing decision makers by just having an iPhone in your pocket.
So that's me out of a job.
Sorry.
No, but Neil, on a serious note, the media have termed this, I think it's called citizen journalism, and seeing the news through their own eyes as a more interactive way of dealing with news and news gathering. Surely this needs that the media is going to need greater context to their news stories. They're going to need greater analysis and also greater historical background to some of the events that are shaping today to explain what's going on.
Right. I think there is a shortcoming of this type of reporting where someone's just reporting from the iPhone. What is a journalist? A journalist is someone who gives meaning and understanding to a series of events which are taking place. What the iPhone and the BlackBerry contribute to that story is, if you like, the instant picture. Bottom line, I think the role of journalist is changing. The professional journalist that we knew maybe 10, 15 years ago is perhaps trying to take a lot of the information that they're receiving from the citizens and making more sense out of it. Today, the people on the ground are not the war correspondent that we once had. It's the person in the situation with the iPhone. What's important to realize is with digital diplomacy, with the iPhone in hand or with the BlackBerry in hand or the smartphone in hand, people can make a difference. So Israel's taking that and asking people to video, to be a part of the Israeli campaign for a fair image and start becoming ambassadors online for the State of Israel. And that's what we're training through the Awesome Seminar site to do.
Okay, we've got another clip to look at, and this identifies how the Arab Spring has been fueled by social networking sites that's overthrown regimes like President Mubarak and Ben Ali of Tunisia, and currently what's taking place in Syria right now.
Popular unrest across the region has to differing extents been attributed to social media sites such as Facebook and Twitter. Jocelyn Massad looks at the phenomenon.
There's been a revolution in the Middle East. And it's not just on the streets. The massive rise in social networking in the region has given voice to the previously voiceless majorities in a free platform for free speech.
In the end, people are really aspiring for some kind of relative freedom, for democratic change, and that no matter how far the various governments go in terms of closing down those spaces, they manage to find others. And this, today, I would say social media is the premium form of participation.
People across the Middle East and North Africa are signing up for social networking accounts at an exponential rate. According to a recent report by digital marketing and social media agency Logix.com, there's been a 51% increase in Facebook usage in the last year alone, putting the total number of members in the region at more than 56 million. And the UAE is leading the trend in terms of market penetration, with nearly half its population logging on.
I think the explosive growth is due to a few reasons. One is social media and Facebook gives people a voice and a reach that they didn't have before. So in this part of the world, many people, they had ideas, they had their own opinions, and they just had no way of getting them out. Also, there was a lot of problems in publicly displaying your opinions. Now with social media, it's changed some of that psychology that people have, and now they feel compelled to put whatever is in their minds out on social media and reach a number of people.
Populations across the Arab world had become disenchanted with the established media and therefore turned to the new wave of social media.
Traditional media structure restricted access to governments and the elites who controlled the media. And the result has been, especially in the Middle East, a lot of superficial reporting, a lot of sycophantic reporting, and many issues have not been covered and basically slip past the radar.
But the social media needn't only be about negative sentiment in the Arab world. Jordanian businessman Ayman Ershaid saw an opportunity to use social networking as a tool to promote a positive image of the Arab people to the West. So, from his Dubai home, he launched Ariba, which in English means closer, closer, to bring the rest of the world closer to the Middle East.
I saw a lot of people now joining Ariba. We never heard about them. They are like well known in US, well known in Europe, but the Arab people never heard about them. So this is a platform. We need such a platform where we can promote ourselves.
With 500,000 subscribers in less than 4 months, Ariba proves the appetite for social networking in the region, but it may not all be plain sailing.
I think that one of the threats is going to be that regimes are going to become more sophisticated, and they're going to be able to find ways to infiltrate these networks and possibly spy on or even persecute those people using social media. Those people have created their own media as a challenge to the existing state media structures.
With the popularity of social media seemingly undimmed, who knows where the information superhighway may lead us. Jocelyn Massad, Inside the National.
Welcome back to the Middle East Report. Neil, we saw in that clip how the social networking sites such as Twitter and YouTube mobilised so many of the Arab protesters to go and protest against the regimes. And what was so interesting doing research for the programme, understanding that when President Mubarak cut the internet off or switched the internet off in the country, this caused even more young Egyptians to take to the streets as if it's their own personal space of personal freedom in very oppressive regimes. The nature of the internet and the nature of these social networking sites are bringing so many people together and they can communicate with one voice. How fundamental is that changing the whole structure of these Arab nations and societies?
I think it is important, but we have to be careful not to overemphasize the role of the internet. I think Western media concentrated on the effect of Facebook, of Twitter, etc. And there is a tendency to exaggerate its importance. Not all of these were just Twitter revolutions. There was more to it. Mubarak's regime didn't fall just because of the internet. It fell because the army itself had had enough and wanted to bring it down. What we are seeing, though, is that the internet does provide that means of communications where 20 years ago it wasn't available for a radical to be able to communicate perhaps between each other. So internet itself is the means of revolution, is the way that people communicate, but I caution people not to over-exaggerate that all of these regimes are just being brought down by the internet. That's too simplistic for me.
I'd agree with your sentiment as well. But Neil, when it comes down to actually journalists reporting on the field in the Middle East, and we've seen many war correspondents out in Egypt, we've seen them particularly in Libya, we saw the war in Libya last year as well. We've had very brave, courageous journalists reporting from the war zones in Benghazi and other places in Libya. Now, when it comes down to more oppressive regimes such as the Iranian regime and the Syrian regime, the only news and information that we seem to be getting out of these countries now is YouTube clips, like saying people taking pictures on their iPhones or events, taking short videos and then sending them to news networks. How powerful is that as a tool in opposing, from the people opposing their own regimes?
See for yourself, turn on the news of any mainstream television channel today and the headlines are being produced by the iPhones and the BlackBerries of people on the street. In other words, today, if there's not journalists following the demonstrators calling for the end of the Assad regime or not calling for the collapse of another Arab country, the people are there with their iPhones. I mean, in that last clip we just saw, what a dramatic shot of the people standing with their phones in the air, videoing events and putting it live on YouTube. There's no censorship that can stop that. And I think that that's an important message. In other words, we're circumventing the whole traditional idea that dictatorships can control the media. Look, there is another issue, which is as follows, is that the Arab Spring is rapidly becoming an Islamic winter. Yes. And whilst everyone welcomes the democracy, everyone welcomes the collapse of some of these really quite horrendous regimes of Mubarak, of Assad, etc., what we are seeing is, as democracy spreads, we're also seeing a growth of Islamic fundamentalism within the region. Best example I can give you is Egypt. The people who got democracy of a type, and the army is still there, today we're seeing the Islamic Brotherhood, we're seeing the Salaf movement, which is even more radical than the Muslim Brotherhood, coming to power in Egypt. So democracy is of course, a value that everyone favours and wants, but it's bringing in a much harder and much more difficult Middle East for Israel. The spread of democracy, which we welcome, is actually the means by which Islamic fundamentalism is growing in the region. And that's part of the changing Middle East. I think the situation today of Israel is much more dangerous than it's been probably since 1967 and the Six-Day War. We have Egypt, which is radically becoming a Muslim country where we don't know what the future will be. We have Hezbollah being held back at the reins looking to attack Israel. We see Syria with a huge question mark. We don't know what's happening. And of course we have Iran, who's seeking to try and get nuclear capability. So this whole Arab Spring today is rapidly becoming a Muslim winter. And we have to see what will happen in 2012.
So how can Israel effectively, in light of what you're saying, in light of this digital revolution that we've seen have a huge impact upon the Middle East, certainly in mobilizing and encouraging so many of the Arab protesters to demonstrate against these regimes, how can Israel effectively use this to advantage to get her message of peace and her message of that she's the only true democracy in the Middle East out?
I think there's two different things here. One is and social networking does enable people to contact other people in different countries. I personally have had contact with both Lebanese, Syrians, just chatting over Twitter. That's one thing. But the second thing is by putting messages across via YouTube, by Twitter, and many of your viewers themselves becoming ambassadors for the state of Israel and representing some of the major issues can certainly have an impact today. We're seeing that impact. We're seeing how regular churchgoers, regular people on the street are having an impact by becoming digital ambassadors and digital diplomats for Israel. And that's the interest of training people, giving them the tools. Not everyone is familiar with Twitter, not everyone is familiar with Facebook, not everyone feels comfortable with things such as RSS, really simple syndication. All of that we're teaching on the Awesome Seminars website.
We've got a very good and excellent clip to go to now, produced by BAFTA, that actually looks at the role that social networking sites have played in a media revolution that we saw with the outbreak of the Arab Spring back in 2011.
Entered a new phase of reporting, that there is something now profoundly different from what we were tasked with doing 15 years ago.
Clearly the phenomenon of Twitter, Facebook, the ability to record footage on mobile phones and to transmit it within instants poses both opportunities and dangers as well, because on the one hand you're able to get footage from places where you can't be, but there's the big problem of verification. And it's not just a problem exclusive to the Arab Spring. I mean, we had an instance recently in Ivory Coast. Our reporter received video, some of the most horrific, graphic video that I've ever seen, of people being burned alive. And the video was presented as an example of the atrocities that were being committed by troops loyal to Laurent Gbagbo. It transpired fairly quickly that this footage was not current footage at all. It was actually shot 2 years ago. It also wasn't even shot in Ivory Coast. These were pictures of people accused of witchcraft being burned alive in Kenya. I mean, they were horrendous pictures, but they were nothing to do with that particular conflict. And that really reiterated for us, it really underlined the need for vigilance.
I think with such an extraordinary, unprecedented series of events, it's incredibly difficult for the international news media to understand entirely and instantly what's going on. No one else did, so why would the journalists? And the speed and the rapidity both of the events and of the news cycle and news process at the moment makes it even harder.
In the last few months, my job has completely changed because I now rely increasingly on footage which has been posted on YouTube or on Facebook, or I've seen via Twitter, posted by people I don't know, that I can't verify, and I've now had to start bringing people in to help me sort out what is real, what isn't, what's new and what isn't.
There is more material available for journalists to sift through and use or not use, and that can only be a good thing. And most of the most responsible networks constantly say we have not been able to verify this for ourselves. And that's a very wise thing.
When there aren't any pictures, we need pictures. And so we go out and get them on YouTube. And we here put a great deal of effort into trying to make, finding someone who recognised the street, checking the accents of people, what they're saying, and so on. So that, and we always put it out with a health warning.
Twitter is wonderful, Facebook, YouTube, fantastic, great tools, but nothing replaces the basics. Nothing replaces us being there. because when I went into Zawiya on the final day, there were no people left in the center of Zawiya to tweet or YouTube or Facebook. They were all gone. Many of them had been killed, a lot of them had been arrested. And we had to be there, because if we weren't there, nobody was there. And nothing basically replaces the old-fashioned boots on the ground, be there.
Hello and welcome back to the Middle East Report. Neil, that was an extremely interesting clip.
Absolutely.
Really seeing how the internet and social media networking sites, including YouTube, have had a tremendous impact on news reporting, particularly from the Middle East, as the speed of events are overtaking so many journalists in what's happening there. But is there not now a need for journalists now to put news in context, to provide greater analysis of what's happening, particularly in light of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and also to put the conflict and the news in its historical perspective?
I would absolutely agree with you. I think the role of the journalist today is changing. It's not so much a collector of information out there in the field, reporting with pad and pen in hand, if you like, but rather taking information which is coming in via Twitter from their own experiences, etc. And at the same time, they have to make sense of what's happening. So a journalist today is trying to make sense, a historical perspective of what's going on and what's happening as events occur in the Middle East. And it's such a rapid event. Events are happening so rapidly, it's quite surprising.
But isn't there, I mean, that clip there really highlighted one of the great dangers of particularly YouTube and the speed of events, that a journalist and a media corporation wanting material, knowing that they've only got a very short period of time to put a program together or a news program together, realising that the events are going so fast, it's a 24/7 news cycle now, that they could get material that ends up being false and they end up losing credibility, and the accuracy of their news reports turns out to have serious flaws. Surely then that will cause a major breakdown of trust between the viewer and the broadcaster.
Well, again, I think journalists are taking some precautions there, as we heard. What they're adding often is this idea of we can't guarantee the accuracy of these reports. This is video we got via YouTube. And I think that that's fair. But today, the risk of inaccurate information or manipulation with intention is something which we seldom see. It's the idea of putting the videos that are coming in on YouTube or coming via Twitter into some perspective. And I come back to what we said before, because I think it is important. The role of the journalist is changing. It's trying to put a meaning into a rapidly changing world. And I think that, you know, if 9/11, put it this way, if 9/11 created the last 10 years of George Bush's foreign policy, Iraq, Afghanistan, what we're seeing in 2011 and 2012 is creating the next decade. We're trying to make sense of that decade with a new weapon in our pocket, which is the iPhone and the BlackBerry.
And really, when it comes down to news reporting, how can Israel improve not only her image but also her diplomacy and her position? Let's take an example. Let's say that Israel's had no choice, as we are hearing that the drums of war are beating very fast in the Middle East now, particularly over a possible war with Iran over Iran's nuclear weapons program. This all kicks off, it starts off a regional war. How then is it important for Israel to communicate the true evil and the reason why Israel's had to do or take such action?
Well, your question is very speculative. We're not at that situation yet. And I hope we don't get to that situation. And what we are seeing is that the world is very much taking action against Iran. We're seeing economic sanctions taking place. We're seeing the pressure which is there. I think the world today is waking up and realizing that Iran is a real and imminent threat, not only just to the state of Israel, but to the world at large. And Iran, which is a fundamentalist country, which believes in the coming of the Mahdi, a prophetic figure who's preceded by days of catastrophe, with nuclear weapons, is a threat to the West. So number one is, I think that the issue of Iran is now becoming relevant. How to use that within new media, and I don't like that because today it's not new media, it's how we do things, is going to be the next challenge for the next few years. Certainly we're seeing messaging coming out, more recognizable official YouTube videos presented by the Foreign Ministry in Israel. We're seeing digital diplomacy and citizens becoming ambassadors for Israel with their cameras and supporters of Israel, such as many of your viewers at home, training, learning how to become ambassadors online. And collectively, all of those elements coming together to change the image of Israel. Just one example. When Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu went on YouTube and wished in Chinese a Happy New Year, that YouTube was seen by millions upon millions of people in China. Now that's breaking all barriers that we've seen before. So we're seeing how information's getting across, radically changing. And the invitation is for people who support Israel, want to improve the image. Now, unlike 20 years ago, they've got an opportunity to really get involved in becoming ambassadors, digital ambassadors for the State of Israel, training, learning how to do it, and getting out there with their iPhones, with their YouTube, just writing on their Facebooks, doing what they do anyway, but doing it for Israel as well.
We've just got a quick clip to go to, but before we do, I want to show a clip by Danny Alon, the Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister. I had the privilege of interviewing back in January. And this is how Danny Alon has been very effective in using social media, particularly YouTube, to communicate Israel's message of peace, but more in particular, the plight of the forgotten Jewish refugees.
In addition to the topics discussed in our first two videos, the subject of refugees is one of the core issues for understanding the Israel-Palestinian conflict. Who are the refugees? Why, more than 60 years later, is this still an issue? Let's look at the facts. So, how did it all begin? In May 1948, the local Arab population was joined by 7 Arab countries in a collective attempt to destroy the newly re-established Jewish state. Encouraged by Arab leaders who promised they would return as victors, and later on, as a result of their failed war efforts, an estimated 500,000 Arabs fled to neighboring Arab territories. But is this the full picture? I'd like you to take a look at the refugees in these photos. Many people assume they are Arab refugees fleeing Israel. But in fact, they are innocent Jewish refugees forced out of Arab countries. This map tells the full story. There were far more Jewish refugees than Arab refugees. Over 850,000 Jews from ancient Jewish communities predating Islam and the Arab occupation of the Middle East were forced out of their homes. Jews were stripped of their citizenship in many countries, and their property was confiscated. In contrast, 160,000 Arabs accepted Israel's offer to remain, and today they are more than 1 million Israeli Arab citizens with full equal rights living in Israel. Now, here is a question. Have you heard of any Jewish refugee camps? I didn't think so. The Jewish refugees were immediately welcomed and absorbed by Israel or by other nations. Then why, after more than 60 years, are the Arab Palestinian refugees still not welcomed and absorbed among their own brethren? And how could their numbers have grown from 500,000 to 4.7 million? The sad reality is that the Arab refugees never had a chance. Attempts at resettlement were blocked by a variety of discriminatory laws enacted in Arab countries, such as a ban on receiving citizenship, with the exception of Jordan, blocking them from entering many professions, restrictions on owning land, restrictions on movement, and a denial of education and health services. Sir Alexander Galloway, a former director of the UN Refugee Agency in Jordan, gave the reason for this discrimination. Quote, "The Arab nations do not want to solve the Arab refugee problem. They want to keep it as an open sore, as a weapon against Israel." Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser explained the effect of this weapon aimed at overwhelming Israel demographically, with generations of refugees cultivated to hate. Quote, "If the refugees return to Israel, Israel will cease to exist." And what role did the United Nations play? Sadly, they were less than helpful. While all refugees in the world are assisted by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, a separate agency, UNRWA, was established specifically for the Palestinians. Why can't the Palestinian refugees share an agency with the refugees of Bosnia, Congo, or Darfur, to name a few? The answer is because while the United Nations Central Refugee Agency helps refugees resettle, the United Nations Palestinian Refugee Agency helps perpetuate their status by applying unique criteria. For example, refugees lose their status after receiving citizenship from a recognized country. Palestinian refugees do not. Refugees cannot transmit their status from generation to generation. Palestinian refugees can. Refugees are encouraged to resettle in other countries or integrate in their host countries. UNRWA avoids such policies. The United Nations spends on a single Palestinian refugee almost 3 times more than on a non-Palestinian refugee, and employs over 30 times the staff. The bottom line is, throughout the 20th century, the UN found durable solutions for tens of millions of refugees, while the Palestinian Refugee Agency has found, well, none. Some people may suggest this is hypocrisy. Let me share something personal. My father's family was forced out of Algeria. They and another 600,000 Jews from Arab states resettled in Israel. History has proven that resettlement and integration helped tens of millions of refugees during the 20th century reclaim their lives. However, the Palestinian refugees are trapped between Arab leaders unwilling to accept their brothers and UN agencies who do not apply equal and universal principles to all refugees. Is this just?
Hello and welcome back to the Middle East Report. Neil, we just saw there the Deputy Israeli Foreign Minister Dani Alon use YouTube in an exceptional way in putting Israel's case forward in such an interactive, creative way to communicate. Should Israel be doing more of this?
Absolutely. I think Israel should be doing more of this. It is doing more of this, and it's really getting a message across. It beats the bias of the media. It's there on YouTube. I just gave a conference of to 20-year-olds. Remember that age?
Long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. I gave a conference to 20-year-olds. I asked them one question. I said, how long do you spend in front of a computer? 1 hour. They all put up their hands. 2 hours. Put up their hands. 5 hours, they all put up their hands. In other words, today, people getting their information in a very different manner. They're not sitting in front of the television being forced to watch something which is boring. They're going onto the internet and spending their time on YouTube. So absolutely, this is a crucial way. Having said all of that, what I disagree with is this is very sleek. You can have an effect, viewers can have an effect, and I think that that's what this program is really about, is empowering citizens to become ambassadors for Israel, digital ambassadors for Israel, by using their own cameras, their own telephones, etc. You don't need a nice, sleek studio. You don't need a nice, big budget. You don't need sponsorship. You need to just open up your laptop and literally start talking, putting up some videos, taking this video, putting it back up. That's the type of thing that we're talking about. So if they have your viewers have a Twitter account, and if they don't, they should open one. Second of all, a Facebook account. Are familiar with things such as RSS, which I know, don't worry, that was a panic look. We only have a few minutes left. But this whole idea of really simple syndication, again explained on our ambassadors course we run on Awesome Seminars. All of that is going to enable a revolution, literally a revolution, in the image of Israel via the internet. It's a real revelation, if you excuse the pun.
That's a very good pun. We've got a clip to go to now that shows how individuals can use social media, particularly YouTube, to put Israel's case forward on the internet.
Nah, I ain't asking you to pick a side. Just understand the issue ain't black and white. And I ain't here to suppress freedom of speech. Know the truth about Israel Apartheid Week. Damn, it feels good to be Israeli. Teach Wamachom is Pita on the daily. Y'all think there's apartheid, that's crazy. Did I mention we're the first country in Haiti? Yo, this is about Israel's public relations. We're talking boycott, divestment, sanctions, illegitimate apartheid accusations. This ain't for airplay on your radio stations. We're going viral with this, so watch it again, or blog and post on Twitter and share with your friends. Don't get caught up in these progressive trends. The state of Israel has a right to its self-defense. This week is all just hypocrisy, and Israel's a full-functioning democracy, and the press is free for all y'all to read, and Arabs and Jews can criticize policy. Y'all think Israel is just so scary. Actually, it's just quite the contrary. The land of honey and all that dairy. Damn, it feels good to be Israeli. Kol balevav, penima, nefesh Yehudi, homiyah. Now let's take a look at South African apartheid, where all these accusations actually applied, where racial segregation creates this divide. Wait, so you're saying all these claims is lies? Well, in a word, yes, and I'll tell you why. Sorry to break it to you, Naomi Klein. Haha, yeah. Cause in Israel we have equality before the law. Arab members of the Knesset include Ayukara, and they make 20% of the U of Haifa. Well, let's take a look at Saudi Arabia. Neighbors lack freedom of religion and speech. Let me guess, what international law did Israel breach this week? Yeah. Okay. So you think you pick up on the cause of South Africa? Now you inherit a boycott from Hitler aimed at Jewish businesses. Sorry, I meant to say Israeli. You don't see nothing to substance, only legitimized hate. No talk of a solution between two states. I don't hear answers or even calls for peace, or a prayer for when war and a bloodshed cease. Kol balevav, penima, nefesh Yehudi, homiyah, ufatem Yizrach, kadima, ayin letzlion,
Hello and welcome back. Neil, I think we're down to the last 4 minutes of the programme. I think we're on to the really important issue of how our viewers can get involved with Standing With Israel, and how they can use these new social networking sites, including YouTube and Twitter and what have you, to be advocates for Israel.
So absolutely. That was a great clip. You know, they just took a camera, started singing. Between you and me, I'm not sure they could actually sing, but didn't matter. They videoed it, got it out there. That video itself got something like 12,000 people watching it, I think, in a few months. Bottom line, this is what people need to be doing. One, not to be scared. If you're not familiar with this technology, it's okay. It's not going to bite you. Okay. Second of all, on the awesomeseminars.com website, we have a free seminar just for Revelation viewers who can join up, sign up, and anytime they like. It's repeating itself, and learn all about this at their own pace, at their own time. So it's a free online training experience for your viewers itself. Second of all, to open up a Twitter account, open up a Gmail account, open up Facebook account, and get that information across. All of that is crucial. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to actually, really be a geek in computers. All you need to be able to do, turn on the computer, write a few words, even just respond if you see something online. Look, the difference between, I'm sure many of your viewers used to write letters to the editor, to a newspaper. The reality is those letters are not remembered the day after. If it's online, it's there forever. So what we're inviting your viewers to do is to go onto the Awesome Seminars site, get trained totally for free, become digital ambassadors for Israel, and make a difference. Two types of people: history makers, bystanders. And what I hope today, given the power of internet, is, and I pray together with you, is the idea of people going to make a real difference for the Holy Land, for Israel, and to fight anti-Semitism and get a fair message across.
I think that's a very noble cause. Very noble cause, and also something that's incredibly worthwhile because it empowers the viewer to take responsibility and to also take action and actually do something for themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, can you imagine if every church was doing this, if every synagogue was doing this, if everyone watching this program went out there and became an ambassador, a digital ambassador for Israel? What a difference it would make. And I think that that's a challenge I'm going to leave your viewers with today, to get empowered, go on the internet and actually make a difference.
Neil, I just want to thank you so much for being my guest on the Middle East Report today, and it's great to have you back. The programmes are very much fun, they're interactive and very informative when you come on, so thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, and I'm going to see you next time online.
Excellent. And I want to thank you, our viewers, for watching today's Middle East Report. Today we looked at the digital revolution, we looked at how this was having an impact in the Middle East today, and more importantly, how you can stand with Israel and the Jewish people by becoming a digital ambassador for Israel online, by having a Twitter account, by posting videos and comments about Israel and about the situation in the Middle East. This empowers Israel to get her message across, but also then generate support for Israel and the Jewish people. And, we're part of this new digital revolution that's changing the way that media is interacting with world events. And this is our opportunity now to really stand with Israel and the Jewish people and to become effective digital ambassadors for Israel. And I want to thank you for watching today's Middle East Report, and thank you.
This is the place where I feel safe, where I'm supposed to be. I feel you holding me, where we made peace, where all can be. What you feel inside, what we feel is right. So I